Forager is a game where you can just do about anything. You can chop trees, you can build a nuclear power plant, murder some harmless beets, and you can also become a trillionaire. Today we're going to attempt to get all the feats in this game. There's over 100 of them, and they range from eating a gem to gathering 100 pieces of poop. Nobody tells you this, but the road to becoming a trillionaire starts with having a questionable amount of turds in your inventory. But how do we become a trillionaire? We start with just one island, a few trees, and some rocks. We chop the trees, break the rocks, then build our first furnace. We can use the wood from the trees to make coal for smelting, and I'm sure you get the gist of this game. We level up and get our first skill point. We choose magic, as this allows us to level up faster, which unlocks more progression. We set some fish traps for a source of food, and we continue to grab resources so we can level up again. We unlock economy, which gives us 40 coins, which means we are 0.000000004% of the way to becoming a trillionaire. We use these to buy our first patches of land. Here we defeat our first slime, because what's an indie pixel game without slimes? And then we meet these happy-go-lucky beets, who we brutally murder despite them telling us they love us, which is just unfortunate. It does reward us with the aptly named monster feat, which is the first of 103 we'll need to unlock to 100% the game. We continue to grab more resources, catch a fish, cook it, and build another furnace to speed up production. We smelt iron so we can build a forge, which will allow us to craft weapons and trinkets, but most importantly we can craft coins, which is super handy in the early game. We level up again, and this time we choose to unlock banks, which will help us to get more coins even quicker. But for now we don't have the materials needed, so we'll have to find a new way to get these. We're not quite a trillionaire yet, but we can still afford to buy 2 new lands for 110 coins, and soon after we can afford another land, which gives us our second feat for owning 5 lands. We decide to explore these new lands, and we find our first puzzle. After figuring out this puzzle that stumped even the great Sherlock Holmes, a chest appears, but we'll need a key to open this. We figure out another brainbuster, so we'll actually need 2 keys. Before we do so, we spend our gold on a bank, so we can earn a bit of money on the side. We craft a key and then open our first chest for our first accessory, the vampire wings, which have a chance to heal us when killing enemies. We open the next chest for the top hat, which not only is it stylish as hell, but it means coins are worth 50% more, which means we've doubled our wealth really early in the game. Now that we're twice as rich, it's time to do what rich people do, and open a sweatshop so we can get even richer. Shortly afterwards, we get our first backpack, which means we can hold 4 more items. If you haven't noticed it already, this game is a hoarder's wet dream. We open the chest on the land we purchased earlier, and we unlock the nerd glasses, which will help us earn XP faster, which is always a solid option to have. We continue to just grab everything we can and level up, and this time we unlock smelting, which means our furnaces and forges work 25% quicker. This little guy kept telling me his inventory was full, so I decided to build a vault to store items. I put items I thought would be valuable in there like gems and seaweed. With our seaweed empire thriving, I decided to reinvest the profits into land, which has a foraging obelisk which gives us XP from gathering food items. We unlock the jewellery skill, which allows us to craft amulets, which gives us more resources, but unfortunately we can't craft it right now. We build a second bank because those sweatshops won't run themselves, then craft a bottle just because we can. We also build our first market, so we can sell any items we don't need. Fueled by my ownership of a second bank, I decide to get the capitalism skill, which allows me to discard items and get paid for it. We buy another land which is occupied by the Fairy Queen. She asks for a donation of 1,000 coins, but I don't do charity. But then I thought it could be used as a tax write-off, so I agreed to help. As we slayed more slimes, we got our third feat for having 100 jelly in our inventory, which is kind of gross as it means we've got some slimy ass pockets. I needed that tax write-off quickly, so my next skill unlocked was treasury, which meant banks work twice as fast next to each other. This skill would be vital for an endgame feat, so it was also good to have it early. We built a third bank just to speed up the process, then soon after we would get another feat for being a hoarder and having 1,000 items in our inventory. With the banks working overtime, we had enough money to pay the fairy for both a chest and another feat. Before we could open the chest, we got another feat for catching 50 fish. Inside the chest was a fairy who granted us passive regeneration. Soon after, we purchased the colonization skill, so purchasing lands would become cheaper. Because of this, we were able to purchase 2 new bits of land, and we chat to this dwarf. He tells us the natural resources have been stripped by a jerk with a pickaxe, so we'll have to keep an eye out for him. He asked that we bring him some torch bugs, and luckily enough we went through a weird bug collecting phase, so we had some already. He rewards us with druid scrolls, plus another feat to go with it. I killed this slime, which turned out to be the 100th of the game so far, which gave us another feat. We decide to check out this building on the other land we purchased, and it turns out to be a museum. The curator tells us his collection is incomplete at the moment, but we're more than welcome to donate items to the museum, and he'll reward us once we complete a section. I smell opportunity, plus another tax break, so I decide to graciously donate a few items. There's 8 different bundles, but some will be a lot tougher to complete than others. We buy more land to the east, and now we have another biome to deal with. I wanted to explore this island, but I'd soon find out I was very under-equipped to do so, and I needed new weapons. Before we crafted these new weapons, we got a feat for smelting 500 items, and then we crafted ourselves a slime wallet with the leftover goo in our pockets. I used our next skill point on the combat skill, so we could unlock swords and explore the new biome. But first we got ourselves a new backpack to hold even more items. We crafted our first sword, which would help us defeat the tougher enemies, and slowly but surely we were able to take them out with our trusty new weapon. Of course, what would a sword be without a shield? This accessory meant we now had a 25% chance to dodge any attacks thrown our way, and those enemies also dropped steel, which meant we could build another bank, and in doing so we unlocked our 10th feat. Next we crafted a shovel, as we'll need one to dig up artifacts for the museum. After clearing this island we see some numbers. No idea what they do for now, so we return back to the main base and find that a star has landed. Breaking it gives us a star fragment, and like the numbers I have no idea what it does for now, so I just put it in the vault. We get our witch on by crafting a cauldron, then soon after unlock manufacturing, which means we can build factories. I would soon unlock the addicted feat for playing for 3 hours, which doesn't seem too long to be honest. Our pockets were getting a bit too slimy for my liking, so we crafted slime boots plus slime gloves, which increased our movement and attack speed by 10%. We purchased a new land and a jester showed up, who turns out to be the creator of this game. He asks us a bunch of random questions in which we get none of them right, but he rewards us anyway with a feat chest as well as our first achievement. Inside the chest is the merchant's medallion, which means markets replenish their stock quicker, and it also points at the secret merchant whenever he appears, but he's too expensive for now. Feeling pretty darn clever after our trivia participation medal, we decide to solve another puzzle. It may look like I'm just randomly pushing these blocks, but I'm in big brain time, as the tower outside shows which blocks needed to be activated to unlock the chest. The chest contains a seal, which unlocks another feat, as well as a spirit orb, an item we can use to level up instantly or increase our stats permanently. The other chest contains some gems and a lot of coins, so a good haul all around. We increase our health using the spirit orb, then buy another plot of land with the money we got from the chest. This island has another puzzle on it, and apparently there's a secret where flowers don't live. Some jerk with a pickaxe decides to destroy all of the flowers, instead of going to the one patch of land that has no flowers, and after digging up all of the flowers, a chest suddenly appears. Inside we find a fishing net, which means all of our traps send the items to our inventory, which is pretty handy. Shortly after, we craft both a golden wallet, making our coins more valuable, as well as a golden sword. To top things off, we also get the slime amulet, which means now we get 25% more resources. We meet a princess in the desert who can't grow any flowers, so it's up to us to give 40 of them to her. In our hunt for flowers, we dig up our 50th item, which gives us another feat, and after returning to the princess with the flowers, we get another one. Honestly, I was expecting something a bit better than a potion as a reward though. She asks for some royal clothing, but we haven't the materials for that at the moment, so we move on. We mined a ruby, which luckily for us meant we had one of every gem in our inventory, which gave us not only a feat, but an achievement to go with it. Not content with getting 25% more resources, we craft a golden amulet for 50% more resources. We solve this puzzle for another chest which contains a lantern. Pretty useless, but we need every accessory for 100%, so at least it's another step closer. We unlock the mining skill, and combined with the gold amulet, this means we'll be raking in the minerals. We buy more land which contains some menacing looking skeletons. After defeating them, we're free to open up these skeleton chests for 2 spirit orbs and another feat. After seeing how little damage we did to the bigger skeleton, we opt to increase our damage this time around. We decide to try out our inscription table, which we can use to craft a mouldy book, which for whatever reason helps us gain more XP at the cost of respiratory issues. Now I've watched The Last of Us, so I know not to keep this mouldy book around longer, and I immediately upgraded to a slime tone. We soon purchase our first frozen island, then unlock the prospecting skill, which will really help us when searching for the artifacts needed for the museum. We pick up our first royal clothing item for another feat, as well as another achievement. We get spooked by this ghost who needs demon horns off us, so we'll have to return once we have them. We craft a slime pickaxe, but we don't like the feel of it because, well, it's slimy, so we immediately went to upgrade it to a gold pickaxe instead. Before we can do so though, we'll need to capture some torch bugs, which we're able to do in no time at all, so we can get rid of our sticky pickaxe for a solid gold one instead. We need more materials, so we unlock quarries, which will spawn a load of rocks. Straight after, we crafted a fishing rod, which will be useful for one specific item in the endgame. We'd also been getting a lot of steel from these enemies, so we can use this to create the skull amulet, which gives us 75% more resources. And shortly after this, we got another feat for having 5,000 items in our inventory. We return to the princess with the royal clothing, and she rewards us with a pink bow. Again, another underwhelming gift from the supposed monarch of these islands. Opening this chest to the south gave us the holy relic artifact, which was a much more useful item. We unlocked the hunting skill, meaning we can now craft bows and arrows, and we immediately crafted a slime bow for our first bow of the game. We meet this old man who doesn't give us a sword, but poo. Okay. He also has the audacity to ask for a golden egg, which we'll need to keep an eye out for. Seems like an unfair trade, but okay. You already know I don't want anything slimy on me, so we upgrade our slime bow into a golden one. We built our first quarry to great effect, and I felt kinda risky, so we sacrificed 2 hearts for 6 skill points, and we use it to unlock a whole bunch of new builds. We continue to dabble in the dark arts as we craft this Book of the Dead for extra XP, defeat this demon, and return to the ghost for a 20th feat, as well as a reward. He immediately asks for an artifact, but at the moment we don't have it, so we're gonna have to move on. We sell some wood for a few coins, and it gives us a feat and an achievement, as this puts our net worth to 5,000 coins, and with the 10 lands we own, we can now be classed as a tycoon. It also gave us a monocle that I can't believe I actually never wore in the game. How am I supposed to look down on peasants without a monocle? Optics is the next skill we unlock, which means we can build the most important building in the game, lighthouses. Speaking of important builds, we build a shrine, and these allow us to pick buffs. The merchant buff will allow us to sell items for twice the price, which will be super important in the endgame. We craft a hammer, which really doesn't do much, but hey, at least I get to say it's hammer time. We meet a goblin who says the skeletons are making his life a nuisance. We'd been stockpiling bones just for this moment, so he rewards us with a chest as well as a feat. We need a key to open this chest, and once we do, we get a key. But not just any key. This is a skeleton key, which will let us open any chest for free from now on. Now, I want to say I solved another puzzle, but this one here gave me no indication of how to solve it in the overworld, so I had to look up how to do so. Don't judge me. You think a Trillionaire got to where he is today because he never cheated? We pick up our well-earned honest loot, as well as the Fire Galaxy seal and a feat to go along with it. This pathetic slime tried to attack us, and we dodged it with ease to get the Acrobat feat for dodging 10 times. This next puzzle was a lot easier to figure out, and it rewarded us with smaller chests on fire, which we can't open now, but the bigger one gave us a lunar medallion, which means starfalls happen more often. We needed something stylish to go with our monocle, so we decided to make ourselves some golden boots and some golden gloves to go with it. Armed with gold, we tackled the skull maze. It was full of torches and skeletons, and like all good dungeons, hidden rooms which we could blow up to find. The maze was also full of loot that wasn't really well defended by these skeletons, so we were happy to pillage as much as we could. This large chest here contained the Necro Rod, an item which could summon skeletons. Now this seems counterintuitive, but it would be the most important item that we collect in the entire game. After defeating the larger skeletons, we could open the final chest of the maze, which gave us the Skull Seal, a feat, and an achievement. We solved our easiest puzzle yet and got a spirit orb for doing so, and after all the loot we'd grabbed in the maze, I knew I would need a bigger backpack. I was already waging war on the skeletons, and this was before I had destroyed 100 graves for the pillager feat. To add insult to injury, we used their bones to craft a few new items. We crafted a skull pickaxe and sword just to add salt to the wounds, but we decided that wasn't enough, and we solved this graveyard puzzle to get the skeleton mask. So now these dumb skeletons thought we were one of them and wouldn't attack us. Idiots. I was still in my weird bug catching stage, so I had done enough catching to finish off the first bundle in the museum, which resulted in a feat and a chest containing a spirit orb. A lot of hours into the game, and I'm only realising now we could roll, which allowed us to dodge these spikes and get 4 spirit orbs. We decided to do a bit of spring cleaning, and when digging we got a feat for picking up an archaeology item. Realising we would need more of these items, we instantly upgraded our shovel, so we could dig up more spots at once. We returned to the weird dwarf with 30 saplings, meaning we had saved the forest from those jerks with pickaxes. And after opening the chest, we got the treasure hunter feat. This would shortly be followed by the swordmaster feat for getting a triple kill with the sword, and very shortly after, we would get the master miner feat for finishing off yet another museum bundle. Wanting to try out a new shovel, we drank this lucky potion so we could find the artifact for the ghost and swiftly return to him for a reward. Finally, we shot the slime with our bow for a 4th feat in very quick succession. We were doing quite well in terms of coins, but we could always do better, so the skull wallet was crafted for this exact reason, and our trips to the icy north had given us a lot of crystals, so we could now craft the crystal pickaxe as a result. We ventured north yet again to face off against these ice wizards in a duel. After defeating them, we got the duelist feat and a chest containing a quiver, meaning we now had unlimited arrows. We were officially in the mid-game now, as we had factories running up and crafting higher end items like electronics. Now I don't remember picking up this golden egg, but I know the old man really wanted one, so I delivered it to him, and it was safe to say he was not impressed by it. Luckily, all my hard work was not in vain, as we got a feat and a spirit orb as a reward. We used this orb to unlock logistics, which will double the area effect of lighthouses. It probably doesn't make sense right now, but trust me, it will at the end of the game. Our daily culling of the skeletons was interrupted by our new swanky crystal wallet, meaning our coins were now worth double. All this culling was taxing on us, so we decided to take a step back and enjoy the more peaceful things in life. which led us getting the Master Farmer feat for completing yet another bundle. Now, I want to say I learned binary specifically for this puzzle, but I didn't. I just looked up binary code, and from there it was a matter of changing the corresponding shapes to the number. Still cheating, I guess, but at least it's not as bad as the last time. I'm also way richer now, so less likely to have any more consequences. Anyways, we grabbed our loot and another artifact that proves I'm the smartest in the land, and of course, a feat to go along with it. After purchasing new land in the winter biome, this giant crystal spawned. We of course mined it, and even though it took ages to mine, it was worth it, as we got not only loot, but a feat and an achievement to go with it. Soon after, we finished off another museum bundle and got the Master Forager feat. Feeling pretty good about ourselves, we got ourselves a new pair of skull boots, and we used these boots to run back to the museum to complete yet another bundle and get the Master Alchemist feat. And we weren't done yet, as we initiated a blood ritual, summoning loads of enemies and getting ourselves another feat in quick succession. We had gotten a lot of loot from these enemies, so we could craft the skull gloves, and very soon after received the crystal sword also. We returned to the ritual site, and after sacrificing our heart once again, we got a droid for doing so, giving us a feat and another achievement. Droids could be used for production or for combat, so they were super handy companions to have. We channeled our inner Gordon Ramsay for another bundle, and got the Master Chef feat for doing so. Now remember all those demons we defeated earlier? Thanks to the loot they dropped, we could craft the demon pickaxe, which had the added bonus of using fire. Using our new pickaxe, we could melt this chest to get a spirit orb, and tackle this ice dungeon. We needed to melt the ice walls using these beams that bounced off the crystals, and our little guy got to live out his lifelong dream of riding a minecart. After making our way to the very end of the cave and opening the final frozen door, we opened this chest and got ourselves the ice rod, a weapon which could be used to freeze enemies. It could also be used to freeze objects, and we got this key from freezing this torch and reflecting the beam. The key opened the door to the boss of this dungeon, the Ice Wizard. It was a long battle, if not a very easy one, and even with just 3 hearts, we were able to easily defeat him. He drops a load of loot, which is always useful, and the chest that appeared also contained the frozen seal, and with it came another feat and achievement. Outside, we upgraded to the Nomad shovel, but I didn't want sand in my pocket.
Pocket sand!
So I instantly upgraded it to the Royal shovel instead. The skull bow would be our next upgrade, and I had a load of items I didn't need, so I sold them all to make a pretty penny. With this money we bought a whole bunch of new lands, but I wish I'd waited a few seconds, as our demon wallet was crafted just seconds after purchasing these lands. We got a feat for talking to the wizard, as we had talked to all the NPCs, and luckily for us we had the items the wizard needed, so another feat would follow very shortly after. Next up, we tackled our second dungeon, the Fire Temple. This would be tougher than the Ice Dungeon, and like it, there would be puzzles we needed to solve along the way. Inside the dungeon was the Fire Rod, the most destructive weapon we had acquired so far, and we would need all the firepower we could get, because the boss of this dungeon was extremely tough. Not only was he extremely tanky, but he could also spawn fodder that would make the fight that more annoying. Admittedly, we did have to cheese it slightly by exiting the room to heal, but honestly, this was the only way I would be able to defeat it. Like the Ice King before him, he dropped the chest containing the fire seal, so that meant there was another feat and achievement in the bag for us. All that enemy fodder worked in our favour, as we could use all their drops to craft the demon sword. We were slowly but surely crafting more endgame materials, which we would need to deliver to this engineer for another feat, as well as the customary spirit orb. It was time to venture into the void, but before we could do so, we got ourselves a new pair of crystal boots. The void is a never-ending area of the game where you have to defeat a set amount of enemies in an allotted time, or else you return to the overworld. You'll also return if you die, but the other side of the void is, once you finish a stage, you can mine and loot for as long as you like. Our first void run went pretty well. Getting to level 5 gave us a feat, but unfortunately for us, we died before void level 10. But all things considered, not a bad first run for how under-equipped we were. The first thing we did after returning was to get the destruction skill, so we do more damage to the bosses in the void. And we built a power plant to boost the efficiency of our nearby factories, so we could get those endgame crafting items quicker. We were going to need a steady supply of resources, so with that in mind, we crafted the crystal amulet. We took time out from our busy schedule to try our luck on the slot machines, and luckily for us, we won on our first try and got the jackpot feat. Now, we were going to need rare artifacts for not only the museum, but also to upgrade the rods we had acquired in dungeons. So our next step was to upgrade our shovel to the robotic shovel. This shovel had the added bonus of always digging up rare items, so that would increase our chances at obtaining the artifacts needed. This old man had insulted me earlier, so I did what any sane person would do in my situation, and I set off 3 bombs in his vicinity. Sadly, he survived the explosion, but at least I got a feat feat for doing so. This would be the first of many feats we would get in quick succession. A robotic shovel had done the job as we first finished off the archaeology bundle. Next up would be for eating a gem. Extremely strange, but not the weirdest thing in this game by far. And finally, we invoked the rage of Santa Claus by slaying a magic reindeer. I didn't feel good about that one. Speaking of not feeling good, over 90% of my viewers aren't subscribed. So if you're enjoying the video, please consider subscribing and leaving a like and comment. Come on, I'm going to be a trillionaire by the end of this, so I'll send you some money if you do. We weren't stopping there. First, we got ourselves a new shiny crystal bow. And remember those numbers from before? They were a code for a puzzle where we would have to activate these pillars in order of the corresponding numbers. We had finally reached level 65, which meant we had reached the max level, which gave us a feat as well as an achievement. The artisan feat would soon follow for crafting 10,000 items, and we could use some of these items to finish off the builder bundle for another feat and spirit orb. And as that was the final bundle we needed to complete, the curator rewarded us with yet another feat, as well as the museum seal for donating all the items. Finally, we would tackle the desert dungeon, and in blowing up this wall, we would find a secret room, which would reward us with our 4th feat in quick succession. The Thunder Dungeon would require a lot of pushing these electric boxes around, and after defeating this room guarded by enemies, a door opened up, which meant we now had the Thunder Rod, which would be essential to completing the rest of this dungeon. Using the rod's power, we could grab the key to the boss room, and it was time to take revenge on this Thunder Elemental for our void defeat earlier. Even with all the fodder enemies it was able to spawn, we had grown in power since our defeat, and we were a lot more capable of taking him on. After finishing off the fodder, we could now open the chest for this dungeon seal, as well as the Tomb Raider feat and achievement. We crafted our first sigil, an item which could summon a boss for the summoner feat, which we immediately used to try to take on the Slime King. We were really underpowered for this boss, as dodging an attack meant we got the Daredevil feat for dodging a lethal attack, meaning he essentially could one-shot us. As we whittled his health down, not only did he get faster, but he also spawned more red slimes, who were tougher than the slimes we had faced from the start of this game. Unfortunately for us, he was able to one-shot us, but this game gives you a very generous extra 4 attempts at defeating the boss, and even more generous is his health stays the same, and we get a few seconds of invincibility. We were getting extremely lucky with our dodges, and with all his help, we were able to defeat our first super boss of the game for a feat as well as a lot of helpful loot. We then bottled up the rainbow from our very first island, and we used it to change the colour of this rock for a very colourful feat. We had found a second use for the Thunder Rod, as it would speed up production of buildings, and we were getting items quicker than we could store, so we needed more space. With that in mind, we decided to craft ourselves a huge backpack, adding even more inventory slots. This chicken had left a surprise in the fairy's fountain, so after cleaning it up, we got the disgusting feat for having 100 pieces of poo in our inventory, a sentence I didn't think I would be saying today. We were doing pretty well for ourselves in terms of money, so we purchased the final island for the Imperialist feat and achievement. Now that we had purchased all the lands, we could focus on saving this money for more important things, like blackjack and hookers. I knew I wanted to return to the void at some point, so I'd need better equipment. The crystal gloves would increase our attack speed, which would be very helpful with even better weapons. We set up a farm for animals so we could get their droppings, and the first thing we did to do so was to use a druid scroll to spawn a load of trees. Next, we used the wizard scroll to turn every tree into animals, and finally we crafted animal feed to feed the animals, so they would turn that into poop. But unfortunately for us and the animals, we had bombs in our hotbar as well, so after using up all of my feed, I accidentally used the bomb. Talk about a shitstorm. We did this back and forth until I had 500 pieces of poop, again a sentence I'd never thought I'd say, but the fox seemed happy enough to reward us with a feat and a chest also. We needed void steel for the wizard's final quest, and after getting 10 of them, he rewarded us not only with 2 feats, but a scepter, which meant our rods had unlimited energy and an achievement for collecting all the artifacts. Feeling pretty good about ourselves, we set up a boss arena armed with ballistas and a lighthouse to take on the Skeleton King, and it was safe to say he humiliated me, one-shotting me with ease, and even spawn killing me. After our humbling loss, we decided to go down the route of the simple farmer, and after planting some seeds, we got 2 feats, one for planting 100 seeds, and another for watering 100 seeds. Now remember when I said the fishing rod had one good use? We needed to use the rod to fish up Kraken's eyes for our next level of gear. We crafted our first void gear with items we had collected earlier. Crafting the void pickaxe would give us a feat, as it was the first void gear we had crafted. After a run-in with the Skeleton King, we decided to restore some confidence to ourselves as we took on the Slime King. Unfortunately for us, he one-shotted us, but it did give us the hopeless feat, so that softened the blow a bit. After defeating him, we got 4 spirit orbs, and now that we were at max level, we could focus on increasing our stats. We continued to fight Slime Kings, and as you can see, we're able to take a few hits. And after using the spirit orbs he dropped again, we upgraded our health to 10 hearts, earning us another feat. Now the reason we needed so many berries in the first place was because we needed fish traps for archaeology items so we could upgrade our rods. The first one we upgraded was the meteor rod, and it was safe to say I was pleased with the outcome. We made quick work of the Slime King, and we had now gotten max health, so we could focus on upgrading our attack and energy. With these upgrades, we were feeling pretty confident in ourselves, so we summoned the Dark Beat, who was out for revenge after we massacred his twin brother at the very start. Even with my upgraded stats, he was no pushover, and he fired off attacks at a ridiculously fast rate. But with the help of our ballistas, we finally defeated him for another feat. And if you're counting, that's 2 giant beets I've murdered. Not a lot, but still a weird amount. And it was time for another story of revenge, as it was round 2 with the Skeleton King. I was stronger this time around, but he had wandered out of the reach of my boss arena, so my ballistas couldn't do anything. So it was entirely up to us to defeat him solo. Like all skeletons do, he got caught in a sewing machine, so he was trapped, but he eventually broke free and the fight was still ongoing. It was tough, but we were now too powerful for him. As we avenged our first failure, we got a feat as a reminder of our hard-earned victory. We were truly in the endgame now, and we needed gear to reflect this. We had unlocked all buildings at this point, and this Spirit Forge was going to be one of the most important, as we needed a lot of cosmic steel. We needed legendary gems as well, a rare drop from bosses, so we continued to spawn bosses and defeat them. Luckily for us, we were getting the gems, and eventually we had enough for a cosmic pickaxe, which also meant we got a feat for crafting our first cosmic gear. Our fish traps we had spent hours getting from farming were working well, as we could craft the Death Rod, an item that doesn't seem like it, but it's what's going to make us a trillionaire. We spent the next few minutes gathering resources for our next 2 accessories, the Demon Gloves and the Demon Amulet, which meant we were hitting faster and gaining more resources. We decided to grab some wood, as we're going to need a lot of wood for a specific feat. But first, I'm going to show you how the Death Rod is going to make me a trillionaire. It can spawn an insane amount of skeletons, and this is without any buffs. As you can see, we made an easy 30,000 from just using the Death Rod for a few seconds, and after selling the loot, we got the wealthy feat. Next up for us was the Toxic Guardian, who at this point of the game was just a pushover for us, as our stats were now at a ridiculously high level. After defeating him, he drops Toxic Sludge, an item we'll need very soon, and of course a feat to go with it. We repeatedly summoned and destroyed skeletons, and after about a half an hour of doing this, we had nearly 30,000 bones to sell. And once we did so, we were finally a millionaire. A feat would come with this, but to become a trillionaire, we would need to be 1,000,000 times richer. Returning to the Void now, much stronger this time around. These enemies were easily defeated, and we breezed our way through to the Void level 10 for a feat. Every 5 levels a chest would spawn with endgame loot, and we had enough firepower with all our new gear and increased stats to do enough damage and reach Void level 20 for another feat. We made it to Void level 24, but there were too many enemies even for us, so we'd return again to attempt to make it to level 30. The loot we had gotten from the Void meant we could get 3 upgrades very quickly. We got the Demon Bow, the Blizzard Rod, and the Storm Rod in very quick succession. Now for some reason the feat for upgrading all rods didn't pop until we left the Skull Maze, and we entered the Skull Galaxy next to it to solve some riddles. And once we did that, we got the Galaxy Seal, which meant not only did we get another feat for solving all the riddles, but another feat and achievement for collecting all the seals as well. We returned back to the Skull Maze yet again in order to light all the torches for another feat, and it was off to yet another dungeon as we beat the Thunder Elemental yet again without taking any damage, for a feat for defeating a dungeon without taking damage. And our final dungeon feat was achieved, as we revealed this hidden room, and in doing so we had found all the secret rooms. After building a load of factories, we got the Constructor feat and achievement for having built 200 structures, and we could use these factories to then craft the items we needed for our new demon boots. Marketplaces were built so we could hopefully get more droids or items that were otherwise annoying to get, and we started to dabble in nuclear power, as we would need nuclear items for our endgame crafting. We went on another weird bug catching craze to capture 100 bugs for a feat, and then shot arrows at nothing in particular for the marksman feat, which this late in the game really shows how little I used the bow. All the bugs we had captured allowed us to craft the Typhoon backpack, and during this process our forge was working in the background, and it had crafted our 2000 coin for the mint feat. Our mini nuclear power plant was working, as we could craft the final version of the pickaxe, as well as getting the radioactive feat for crafting our first nuclear gear. We returned back to the Void to have another go, and despite our best efforts and new upgrades, we just couldn't keep up with the bosses spawning enemy fodder. It wasn't all bad though, as once again the loot had been good, so we could continue to craft new items. The Void boots would help us with our movement speed, and the Void wallet would help us with the end goal of becoming a trillionaire. I was determined to reach Void level 30, so we returned with more firepower as I brought all my droids, as well as potions and scrolls to help deal with fodder. Luckily for us, this paid off, as we were easily able to reach Void level 30 for another feat and achievement. We had one last puzzle to solve, and once we opened the chest, we got the greatest reward of all, a feat and an achievement for opening every single treasure chest in the game. Now unfortunately for me, one of my files got corrupted, so I don't have the footage of me upgrading the rest of my gear, but I only had a few items left to fully upgrade to nuclear, with the gloves being the last ones. I'll be completely honest and say I genuinely forgot the XP books were a thing. First we crafted the glacial scripture, then straight away we got the hellfire glyphs, then the void guide, and then finally we crafted the magnum opus. The nuclear codex would be the final accessory we needed, but we needed a lot of paper for this, which is something we didn't have as those books didn't grow in trees. So we turned our attention to the obliterator, which as the name suggests can destroy anything it touches, and that was the final weapon we needed. And we had enough paper for the nuclear codex, which meant we now had all accessories and tools unlocked, which should have unlocked 2 feats, but it glitched and just didn't pop up. But after restarting the game, they eventually showed up, and with those 2 confirmed, we only had 5 more feats left to get, and they were going to be a doozy. Not only were they going to be time consuming, but also resource consuming. The first one we attempted was having 100 nuclear powered structures. It's a lot, but we'd been building towards this for quite some time. The only issue was that the cosmic steel needed was crafted using legendary gems. This meant farming bosses, as this was the only way they would drop naturally outside of the marketplace. But farming the bosses was no issue, as we were so overpowered at this point, the bosses would drop in seconds. In fact, we were so overpowered we were taking on 4 at once and having absolutely no issue. The next step of the plan was clearing a massive amount of space to build the structures, and then building shrines until we got the builder buff, which meant structures cost half the resources to build. We built furnaces and sewing stations, as these were the cheapest resource wise, and once we had finished building them, it was just a matter of time of upgrading them to a nuclear powered structure. I had miscalculated, so we put them on the structures at my main hub, and we got the production master feat and achievement for owning 100 nuclear structures at once. The next feat wasn't easy by any stretch of the imagination, but we had set this up since the very beginning of the game, as our banks actually made me 1,000,000 coins when I was AFK, so that was nice to come back to. The next feat would not be as easy, and would actually be one of the most time consuming of all, as we had to cover up every single water block in the game. This means crafting over 2,000 bridges, which meant I needed wood. Lots and lots of wood. We also had to destroy all the structures on the water, as these counted towards defeat. Filling the water tiles was extremely mundane, but also kind of therapeutic at the same time. I was slightly worried about this one, as I knew this could potentially be buggy, as I thought we had filled them all in. Luckily for me, however, we had only missed one behind this tree, but once it was filled, we got our 100 feet, which meant we only had 2 left, and that meant becoming a billionaire, and then finally, a trillionaire. The billionaire was easy, as we'd been stockpiling these bones and skull heads for quite a while now. Being a billionaire meant now we were 0.1% of the way to becoming a trillionaire. It seems like a long way, but I have a plan. The plan includes a load of lighthouses, creating this 2x2 space, and fill it with spike traps. Then we get the industrious buff, so the lighthouses work twice as fast, and then we use the rod to spawn in skeletons. It's actually a really easy setup. I don't know why there's only been 1 trillionaire in the history of the world. The drops were insane, as we got over 5 billion bones, which we sold, and my week-long dream of being a trillionaire in a video game was finally completed. And what a ride. The trillionaire feat had popped, as well as the achievement, and with that we had done every single thing this game had to offer. From our very first island, cutting down our first tree, slaying our first slime, to now becoming a necromancer god, and a very rich one at that. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you made it this far, thank you. I'd highly recommend this game if you haven't played it yet. It's fun, it's therapeutic, and when you become a trillionaire, it feels pretty good. Thanks again, and I hope to catch you in the next one.